The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber hissed open with mechanical precision. Ambassador David Reed walked through them, knowing that the next few minutes would determine Earth's fate for generations to come. His polished black shoes clicked against the crystal floor as he approached the semicircular arrangement of alien delegates. Each species sat in their designated sections, their forms ranging from the elegant crystalline beings of Altair to the massive insectoid creatures. From the hive worlds, Reed had practiced this moment 1,000 times. But nothing could have prepared him for the wave of condescension that washed over him as he reached the speaking platform. The air itself seemed to buzz with barely contained amusement. He could hear the clicking of mandibles, the grinding of crystal bodies, and the low rumbles of creatures whose vocal cords operated on frequencies that made his teeth ache. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," Reed began, his voice carrying across the vast chamber through translation devices that converted his words into dozens of alien languages simultaneously. "I come before you today as a representative of Earth and humanity, seeking alliance and protection for our growing colonies in the outer systems." The response was immediate and devastating. Admiral Corvin of the Drakmor Empire rose from his seat, his 6 muscular arms spreading wide in what Reed had learned was a gesture of dismissal among his kind. The gray-skinned warrior's voice boomed across the chamber like thunder rolling across mountains. "Alliance?" Corvin's translator rendered his words with mechanical precision, but Reed could hear the mockery underneath. "The primitive apes of Earth speak of alliance? What could such creatures possibly offer the civilized galaxy?" Laughter erupted from multiple sections of the chamber. The crystalline beings of Altair chimed like wind bells caught in a hurricane. The insectoid delegates clicked their mandibles in rapid succession, creating a sound like machine gun fire. Even the gas-floating entities from the Nebula Collective pulsed with colors that Reed's briefing materials had identified as expressions of amusement. Captain Thorne of the Centauri Federation leaned forward in his hoverchair, his blue-tinted skin catching the chamber's lights. "We have reviewed your species' military capabilities. Ambassador Reed, your largest warship masses less than our standard cargo haulers. Your weapons still rely on chemical explosives and primitive fusion reactions. Your shields are nothing more than electromagnetic fields that a child could penetrate." Reed felt heat rise in his cheeks but maintained his diplomatic composure. "Our technology may seem primitive to your advanced civilizations, but we have proven ourselves capable of defending our home system. We have established 17 colonies across 4 star systems, and our expansion continues." Expansion? The word came from Hive Queen Adzara, her massive form dominating the insectoid section of the chamber. Her translator struggled to render the clicking and chittering of her native tongue into something resembling human speech. "You call the fumbling about of chemical rockets expansion? Your fastest vessels take decades to travel between stars? Our scout ships cover the same distances in hours?" Reed opened his mouth to respond, but Admiral Corvin wasn't finished. The Drakmor warrior accessed his personal datapad and projected a holographic display above the chamber's center. Earth's fleet appeared in miniature, floating in the air. "Like toys," observed fellow delegates. Earth's most powerful warship, the UES Defiant, masses 12,000 tons and carries enough firepower to threaten a small moon. Impressive, perhaps, to their primitive minds? Corvin manipulated the display, and the human ship shrank to dots as a single Drakmor vessel appeared alongside them. "My personal flagship masses 2 million tons and carries weapons that could crack a planet's crust. The Defiant would not even qualify as a shuttle in civilized space." The chamber erupted in renewed laughter. Reed watched as his people's greatest achievements were reduced to objects of ridicule. The years of struggle, the sacrifices made to reach the stars, the pride of humanity's expansion into the galaxy, all of it dismissed with casual contempt. "Furthermore," continued Captain Thorne, "Earth's colonies have been experiencing what they call mysterious attacks, entire settlements vanishing without explanation. If humans cannot protect their own people with their primitive technology, what use could they possibly be to the Council?" Reed's prepared diplomatic responses felt inadequate in the face of such overwhelming condescension. He had come here seeking protection for Earth's vulnerable colonies, hoping to find allies among the star-spanning civilizations of the galaxy. Instead, he found himself the subject of what felt like a cosmic joke. "The Council appreciates Earth's enthusiasm," said Speaker Valen, the ancient being who served as the chamber's moderator. His species had evolved beyond physical form centuries ago, existing as pure energy contained within crystalline matrices. However, membership in our alliance requires certain standards of technological and military capability. Standards that, frankly, your species cannot meet. "Then grant us protectorate status," Reed said, abandoning his carefully prepared speech. "Our colonies are defenseless against these attacks. We're losing entire populations. Surely the Council has a duty to protect developing civilizations." The laughter died away, replaced by something far more ominous. Admiral Corvin's expression shifted from amusement to something approaching interest. "Protection, you say? That can certainly be arranged, but protection requires compensation. Earth possesses several valuable resources that would interest Council members." Reed felt a chill run down his spine. The way Corvin spoke made it clear that the compensation he had in mind would be far more than trade agreements or tribute. The other delegates were nodding, their various forms of agreement creating a symphony of grinding crystals, clicking mandibles, and low rumbles. "The Council offers Earth a choice," Speaker Valen announced with the finality of a judge pronouncing sentence. "Prove your worth as a military power within one solar cycle or accept protectorate status under Council oversight. You have 72 hours to decide which path your species will take." Reed stared at the assembled delegates, realizing that he had walked into a trap. The Council had no intention of accepting Earth as an equal partner. They saw humanity as either a useful resource to be exploited or a potential threat to be eliminated. The attacks on Earth's colonies weren't random events, they were tests, designed to demonstrate humanity's weakness and justify whatever action the Council planned to take. As Reed turned to leave the chamber, he caught fragments of conversation in various alien languages. The translators rendered enough for him to understand that the delegates were already discussing how to divide Earth's resources among themselves. They spoke of humanity's fate as if it were already decided, as if the next 72 hours were merely a formality. The massive doors closed behind him with a sound like the sealing of a tomb. Reed walked through the corridors of the Council station, his mind racing. He had one chance to warn Earth, one opportunity to prepare for what was coming. Whatever happened next, humanity would face it alone, just as they always had. The galaxy had made its position clear. Earth was nothing more than a joke, a collection of primitive apes playing at civilization. In 72 hours, the laughter would stop, and the real test would begin. The silence that greeted Alex Stone when he dropped out of hyperspace above Haven's Rest was more terrifying than any battle cry. The agricultural colony that had housed 2 million souls just 3 days ago now hung in space like a tomb, its lights extinguished, its communication arrays dead. Stone had commanded patrol vessels for 15 years, but nothing in his experience had prepared him for the sight that awaited him on the surface, the UES. Ranger descended through Haven's Rest's atmosphere under full stealth protocols, its sensors sweeping for any sign of life. What they found instead defied explanation. The colony's 3 major cities stood empty but intact, their buildings undamaged, their streets clean. The attackers had taken everything organic, every human, every animal, every plant while leaving. Behind only metal and stone, Stone's landing party deployed in hazmat suits, their weapons ready for threats that might not even exist. The colony's main plaza had been a bustling marketplace just days before, filled with vendors selling fresh produce from the planet's vast agricultural regions. Now it stood empty, the stalls still displaying their wares as if the vendors had simply vanished mid-transaction. "Sir, you need to see this," called out Lieutenant Ross from the colony's administrative center. Stone found her standing in the main control room, staring at a security monitor that showed the final moments of Haven's Rest. The timestamp indicated the recording was less than 72 hours old. The screen showed massive, vessels descending. From the void, their shapes unlike anything in the Galactic Council's databases. The ships were enormous, each one easily the size of a small moon, their surfaces covered in what appeared to be organic armor plating that pulsed with its own internal light. No energy signatures matched any known civilization. "Run it again?" Stone ordered, watching as the alien vessels deployed swarms of smaller craft. The attackers moved with precision and purpose, their ships splitting up to cover the entire planet simultaneously. What followed was not a battle, but a harvest. The smaller vessels used some kind of beam weapon that didn't destroy buildings or equipment. It simply made living things disappear. The recording showed colonists running in panic, but their flight was useless. The beam swept over them, and they vanished as if they had never existed. Children playing in parks, farmers tending their fields, families hiding in their homes, all of them taken in the space of a few hours. The attackers worked with mechanical efficiency, strip mining the planet of every living thing before departing as suddenly as they had arrived. Stone's investigation team found similar patterns across the colony. The attackers had taken not just the humans but every form of life down to the bacteria in the soil. They had harvested the planet's biosphere completely, leaving behind a sterile world of empty buildings and barren earth. The pattern repeated itself across human space over the following weeks. The mining colony of Titan's Gate fell silent, its automated systems continuing to operate even as its population of 50,000 vanished without a trace. The research station on Kepler's Garden suffered the same fate, its scientists disappearing. Mid-experiment, their equipment still running their final calculations, Admiral Rebecca Cross studied the attack patterns from her command center on Earth's lunar station. The woman who had spent her career defending humanity's expansion into the galaxy now faced an enemy that seemed to appear from nowhere and disappear just as quickly. Her analysts had identified several disturbing patterns in the attacks. "They're not random," Cross explained to the emergency session of Earth's Colonial Defense Council. "The attackers are selecting targets based on population density and isolation. They're avoiding our more heavily defended systems and focusing on agricultural and research colonies where resistance would be minimal." The evidence pointed to something far more sinister than simple raids. The attackers weren't interested in Earth's technology or mineral wealth. They were harvesting humans themselves, taking entire populations alive for purposes that Cross didn't want to imagine. The surgical precision of the attack suggested planning and intelligence gathering that had been going on for months or even years. Cross authorized the deployment of Earth's entire fleet to protect the remaining colonies, but she knew it wouldn't be enough. The enemy vessels were too large, too advanced, and too numerous for humanity's limited forces to face in direct combat. The attacks continued despite the increased patrols, the alien raiders striking with impunity whenever they chose. The breakthrough came when Cross received a data packet from the Deep Space Monitoring Station at Proxima Centauri. The station's long-range sensors had detected the same energy signatures near several other star systems, all of them belonging to species that had recently gone silent or reported mysterious disappearances. The aliens weren't just targeting humanity. They were systematically harvesting every species on the galaxy's rim, taking entire civilizations while the Galactic Council remained conspicuously silent. Cross's attempts to contact the Council met with delays and excuses. When she finally managed to reach Ambassador Corvin, his response was predictably dismissive. "The Council cannot spare resources to investigate every unsubstantiated claim from primitive species," Corvin's image declared from the secure communication channel. "If Earth's colonies are experiencing difficulties, perhaps it is time to consider the protection we offered." Cross ended the transmission with barely controlled rage. The Council knew what was happening. They had to know. The attacks were too widespread, too systematic for the galaxy's supposed protectors to remain ignorant. Either the Council was incompetent, or they were complicit. The final straw came when the trading post at New Geneva disappeared along with its population of 300,000. The post had been humanity's primary contact point with other species, a neutral ground where human merchants traded with alien visitors. Its destruction sent a clear message. Nowhere in human space was safe. Cross-activated Earth's highest security protocols and sent an encrypted message to a location in the Kuiper Belt that officially didn't exist. The message was simple: Prometheus authorization granted. Activate all assets. The response came back within minutes. Acknowledged. Prometheus 1 moving to deployment position. Estimated time to operational status, 48 hours. Cross stared at the message, knowing that she had just authorized humanity's most closely guarded secret. For 30 years, Earth had been preparing for this moment, developing technologies and capabilities that the galaxy's arrogant civilizations couldn't imagine. The aliens had dismissed humanity as primitive apes playing with chemical rockets. They were about to learn how wrong they had been. The Galactic Council had given Earth 72 hours to prove its worth or accept subjugation. Cross smiled grimly as she calculated the timeline. The Council's deadline was still 12 hours away, but humanity's response was already in motion. The galaxy had laughed at Earth's weakness for too long. The laughter was about to stop. In the depths of space, something vast and terrible stirred to life. The predators who had been systematically harvesting the galaxy's younger species were about to discover that they had finally encountered prey that could bite back. The age of humanity's seeming weakness was coming to an end, and the galaxy would never be the same. Earth's colonies might be defenseless, but Earth itself had teeth. Big teeth. And they were about to be bared for the first time in 30 years of careful preparation and patient waiting. The aliens had mistaken humanity's restraint for weakness, but they were about to learn the difference between being unable to fight and choosing not to fight. The harvest was about to become a hunt. Deep in the frozen wasteland of the Kuiper Belt, where the sun appeared as nothing more than a bright star among countless others, the asteroid designated as Mining Platform 7 began to crack open like a mechanical egg. What emerged from within would have been impossible to any civilization that followed conventional physics, but humanity had long since abandoned the notion that the universe cared about what was supposed to be possible. Director Morgan Vale watched from the observation deck as the UES Leviathan broke free from its construction berth for the first time in 3 decades. The ship defied every principle of spacecraft design that the galaxy's civilizations held sacred. Where alien vessels were sleek and elegant, the Leviathan was brutal and angular. Where they relied on exotic matter and dimensional manipulation, humanity's first true warship harnessed forces that most species considered theoretical impossibilities. The Leviathan stretched nearly 50 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull constructed from materials that shouldn't exist according to conventional physics. The ship's outer armor consisted of crystallized gravity fields, matter that had been compressed and twisted until space itself became a solid barrier. Its weapons weren't energy cannons or particle beams, they were devices that fired compressed space-time projectiles that could punch holes through reality itself. Vale had dedicated her entire career to this moment, overseeing the Prometheus project since its inception 30 years ago. While the Galactic Council had dismissed humanity as primitive apes, Earth's brightest minds had been working in absolute secrecy to develop technologies that would make the galaxy's most advanced civilizations look like children playing with toys. The project had begun with a simple observation: every alien species humanity had encountered followed the same basic technological paths. They all used similar energy sources, similar propulsion systems, similar weapons. They had become predictable, following patterns that had been established millions of years ago. By the galaxy's first starfaring civilizations, humanity had chosen a different path. Instead of trying to copy alien technology, Earth scientists had pushed into realms that other species had deemed impossible or too dangerous to explore. They had learned to manipulate black holes, to crystallize gravity, to compress space-time itself into solid matter. The results were weapons and defenses that operated on principles the galaxy had never seen. Ray Hudson had been selected as the Leviathan's commanding officer 5 years ago, spending every day since then learning to operate systems that technically shouldn't work. His crew of 3,000 represented the best of humanity's military and scientific personnel, each one sworn to absolute secrecy about the project's existence. Hudson stood on the Leviathan's bridge, watching as the ship's primary systems came online for the first time. The main display showed a readout that would have been incomprehensible to any alien observer. The ship's power core was a controlled black hole, its energy output measured in stellar masses per second. The navigation system didn't plot courses. Through normal space, it bent spacetime around the ship, allowing it to travel faster than light without entering hyperspace. "All systems showing green, Captain," reported Commander Lisa Price, the ship's chief engineer. "Gravitational field. Generators are at full power. Temporal compression drives are online. Spacetime cannons are charged and ready." Hudson nodded, opening a communication channel to Earth Command. "Control, this is Prometheus 1. We are operational and ready for deployment. Requesting permission to begin hunting operations." The response came from Admiral Cross herself. "Permission granted, Prometheus 1. Your target is the enemy fleet responsible for the Haven's Rest incident. Last known position was grid reference Alpha 77, moving toward the Kepler system. You are authorized to use any means necessary to protect human colonies." Hudson smiled grimly as he closed the channel. The galaxy's predators had grown accustomed to hunting helpless prey. They were about to learn what it felt like to be hunted by something that had been designed specifically to kill them. The Leviathan's departure from its hidden berth sent ripples through local space that would have been detected by any civilization monitoring the area. Fortunately, the Kuiper Belt was far enough from the major shipping lanes that no alien sensors were present to witness humanity's ace in the hole finally revealing itself. The ship's acceleration was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Where conventional vessels required hours or days to reach interstellar velocities, the Leviathan simply wrapped spacetime around itself and stepped sideways through reality. The journey to the Kepler system, which would have taken Earth's conventional warships 3 weeks, was completed in less than 4 hours. Hudson's tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Brett Walsh, had been tracking the enemy fleet since their departure from Haven's Rest. The alien ships moved in a tight formation, their energy signatures indicating they were proceeding toward the Kepler system's outer colonies. Their behavior patterns suggested they were preparing for another harvest operation. "Contact bearing 27 Mark V, Captain," Walsh reported. 15 enemy vessels, configuration unknown. They're moving in attack formation toward the Kepler agricultural stations. Hudson studied the tactical display, noting that the enemy ships were massive but followed predictable movement patterns. They relied on their size and apparent invulnerability to intimidate their targets, never having encountered resistance from their victims. That overconfidence was about to become their downfall. "Battle stations," Hudson ordered. "All hands, prepare for combat operations. This is not a drill." The Leviathan's crew moved with practiced efficiency, taking their positions at stations that controlled weapon systems beyond the galaxy's imagination. The ship's main cannon required a crew of 50 to operate its targeting systems, calculating trajectories through folded spacetime. The secondary batteries were smaller but no less deadly, each one capable of punching holes through matter that had been compressed to the density of neutron stars. Hudson had spent years studying the enemy's tactics, analyzing the attack patterns from every colony raid. The aliens operated like a pack of predators, surrounding their prey and using their superior numbers to overwhelm any resistance. They had never faced an opponent that could match their firepower or threaten their massive vessels. "Enemy fleet is maintaining course and speed," Walsh reported. "They haven't detected our approach. Recommend we engage at maximum range to preserve tactical surprise." Hudson nodded, knowing that the Leviathan's first shot would determine the outcome of the engagement. The enemy had to be eliminated quickly and completely before they could send warnings to their allies or adapt to humanity's new weapons. The galaxy's predators had grown lazy and predictable, but they were still dangerous when cornered. "Targeting solution established," reported the weapons officer. "Main cannon is locked onto the enemy flagship. Secondary batteries are targeted on the escort vessels. We have firing solutions on all 15 enemy ships. Hudson took a deep breath, knowing that the next few minutes would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. For 30 years, humanity had remained hidden, allowing the rest of the galaxy to dismiss them as primitive and harmless. That deception was about to end in the most spectacular way possible. "Fire," Hudson ordered. The Leviathan's main cannon discharged with a sound that traveled through the ship's hull like the tolling of a massive bell. The projectile it fired wasn't matter or energy, it was compressed space-time itself, a bullet made from the fabric of reality. The shot crossed the distance to the enemy flagship in microseconds. Striking with the force of a collapsing star, the enemy vessel simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not vaporized, but erased from reality as if it had never been there. The secondary batteries fired in sequence, each shot punching holes through enemy armor that had been designed to withstand conventional weapons. The alien fleet found itself under attack by forces they couldn't understand. Facing destruction they couldn't prevent, the galaxy's age of easy predation was over. Humanity had revealed its true nature at last, and the universe would never be the same. The Leviathan sensors penetrated the enemy fleet's formation with ruthless precision, revealing details that made Ray Hudson's blood run cold. The massive vessels weren't just warships, they were mobile harvesting platforms, their hulls lined with containment bays designed to hold living beings. Millions of them. The ship's advanced scanning systems detected energy signatures from dozens of different species, all of them trapped within the alien vessels like cattle awaiting slaughter. "Captain, we're reading life signs from all 15 enemy vessels," reported Lieutenant Commander Walsh, his voice tight with controlled rage. "Estimates suggest they're holding approximately 3 million sentient beings from at least 40 different species." Hudson stared at the tactical display, watching as the enemy fleet continued its approach toward the Kepler agricultural stations. The aliens had no idea they were being hunted by something that could end their existence in seconds. Their massive ships moved with the confidence of apex predators who had never encountered serious resistance. "Analysis complete on the enemy vessel configurations," announced Commander Price from her position at the sensor station. "Captain, these ships aren't from any known Galactic Council species. The energy signatures match theoretical models for a civilization that was supposed to have been extinct for over 50,000 years. Hudson felt pieces of a larger puzzle clicking into place. The attacks on human colonies hadn't been random raids by unknown aliens. They were part of a systematic harvesting operation conducted by a species that the galaxy believed had been destroyed millennia ago. The Devourers, a race of energy vampires that had once terrorized the galaxy before being driven to extinction by the combined forces of the early Galactic Council. "They're not extinct," Hudson said quietly, understanding the horrible truth. "The Council didn't destroy them, they made a deal with them." The implications were staggering. The Galactic Council, the supposedly benevolent organization that maintained peace and order throughout the galaxy, had been secretly feeding primitive species to their ancient enemies. The Council's dismissal of humanity's requests for protection wasn't arrogance, it was complicity. They had been delivering Earth's colonies to the Devourers like tribute payments. The lead Devourer vessel, a nightmare of organic metal and pulsing energy conduits, suddenly changed course. Its sensors had finally detected the Leviathan's approach, and the ship's massive bulk began to turn toward the human vessel. Hudson could see weapons ports opening along its hull, revealing energy cannons that dwarfed anything in the Galactic Council's arsenal. "Incoming transmission from the enemy flagship," reported the communications officer. "They're broadcasting on multiple frequencies." "Put it through," Hudson ordered. The main display flickered to life, revealing a creature that belonged in humanity's worst nightmares. The Devourer's captain was a writhing mass of tentacles and eyes, its body constantly shifting between solid and energy states. When it spoke, its voice was like the screaming of dying stars. "Insignificant vessels of the feeding grounds," the creature said, its translator struggling to render its words into human language. You approach the hunger that walks with weapons drawn. This is unprecedented. The Council's tribute species do not possess such capabilities. Hudson stood from his command chair, his expression grim. This is Captain Ray Hudson of the Terran? Vessel Leviathan. You are in violation of human space and have committed acts of war against our colonies. Surrender immediately or face destruction. The Devourer's laughter was like fingernails on a chalkboard amplified through a cathedral. Terran? Human? These words are unknown to us. You are merely another feeding species, delivered to us by the Council for consumption. Your defiance is amusing but ultimately meaningless. The Council delivered us to you? Hudson asked, though. He already knew the answer. For 50,000 years, the Council has maintained the ancient agreements, the Devourer replied. They provide us with the young species from the galaxy's rim, and we do not consume the established civilizations. Your species was promised to us 3 rotations ago. We have been patient, but our hunger grows strong. Hudson felt rage building in his chest. The Galactic Council hadn't just dismissed humanity's requests for protection, they had actively arranged for Earth's colonies to be harvested. Every vanished settlement, every missing population, every family torn apart by the mysterious attacks had been orchestrated by the galaxy's supposed protectors. You're going to find that humans are different from your usual prey, Hudson said coldly. We don't surrender, we don't submit, and we definitely don't get harvested. The Devourer's response was to open fire with every weapon at its disposal. Energy beams that could crack planets struck the Leviathan's hull and simply dissipated against the ship's crystallized gravity shields. The aliens' weapons were designed to drain life energy from their targets, but the Leviathan's defenses operated on principles that the Devourers had never encountered. Hudson watched the enemy's attacks fail completely, their most powerful weapons unable to penetrate humanity's revolutionary defensive systems. The Devourers had grown accustomed to feeding on helpless prey, their tactics and weapons designed for harvesting rather than actual combat. Return fire, Hudson ordered. Target their weapon systems first. I want them disabled, not destroyed. We need to rescue those prisoners. The Leviathan's secondary batteries opened fire with surgical precision, their space-time projectiles punching through Devourer armor like paper. The alien vessels had been designed to intimidate and overwhelm primitive species, but they were completely unprepared for weapons that could manipulate the fundamental forces of reality. The battle was over in minutes. The Devourer fleet found itself completely outmatched by a single human vessel, their mighty warships reduced to drifting hulks by weapons they couldn't understand. The hunger that walks, the ancient predator that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia, discovered what it felt like to be prey. Enemy fleet is disabled, reported Walsh. All weapons offline, propulsion systems destroyed. They're dead in space. Hudson opened a channel to the surviving Devourer vessels. This is your final warning. Release all prisoners immediately, or we will board your ships and take them by force. You have 60 seconds to comply. The response came not from the Devourers, but from the prisoners themselves. The containment bays throughout the enemy fleet began opening as the various species, trapped within, fought back against their captors. The Devourers, weakened by the battle and facing organized resistance for the first time in millennia, found themselves overwhelmed by their own former victims. Captain, we're receiving distress signals from multiple species, reported the communications. Officer, they're requesting immediate evacuation assistance. Hudson nodded, opening channels to coordinate the rescue operation. Among the voices crying out for help, he heard human accents survivors from the colonies that had been harvested over the past months. Haven's Rest, Titan's Gate, New Geneva, they were all there, alive but traumatized by their ordeal. As the rescue shuttles deployed from the Leviathan, Hudson received an urgent message from Earth Command. Admiral Cross's image appeared on the main display, her expression a mixture of relief and grim determination. Prometheus 1, we've just received word from our sources within the Galactic Council. They're mobilizing their fleet to investigate the disturbance in the Kepler system. They know their arrangement with the Devourers has been compromised, Hudson smiled coldly. The galaxy's corrupt leadership was about to learn that their ancient conspiracy had been exposed by the very species they had tried to sacrifice. The Galactic Council had maintained their power through 50,000 years of hidden deals and casual betrayals, but their reign of hypocrisy was coming to an end. Understood, Command. We're completing prisoner evacuation now. All surviving Devourers are to be held for questioning about their arrangement with the Council. The age of the galaxy's easy predation was over. Humanity had not only revealed its true capabilities, but had also exposed the corruption at the heart of galactic civilization. The Council's laughter at Earth's primitive technology was about to turn into screams of terror as they realized they had awakened something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The harvest was over. The reckoning had begun. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. Admiral Rebecca Cross stood at the same podium where Ambassador Reed had been humiliated just weeks before, but the atmosphere had changed completely. The alien delegates who had once laughed at humanity's primitive technology now watched her with expressions that ranged from fear to barely concealed terror. Cross activated the holographic display above the chamber center, showing the aftermath of the Battle of Kepler system. The massive Devourer fleet that had terrorized the galaxy for 50,000 years lay in ruins, their ships reduced to drifting hulks by weapons the assembled aliens couldn't comprehend. At the center of the display, the UES Leviathan hung in space like a sleeping giant, its angular hull reflecting the light of distant stars. "Honored delegates," Cross began, her voice carrying the weight of absolute authority, "I present evidence of the Galactic Council's complicity in genocide, slavery, and crimes against sentient life on a scale that defies comprehension, Admiral." Corvin shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his 6 arms trembling slightly. The proud Drakmor warrior who had dismissed humanity as primitive apes now faced the reality that those same apes had built weapons that could erase his entire civilization from existence. His flagship, the mighty dreadnought that had once seemed invincible, would last exactly 12 seconds against the Leviathan's main cannon. "The evidence is fabricated," Corvin declared, though his voice lacked its former confidence. "The Council has maintained galactic peace for millennia. These accusations are nothing more than the desperate lies of a species facing extinction." Cross smiled coldly and manipulated the display, showing recordings taken from the captured Devourer vessels. The chamber filled with the screams of dying civilizations, the cries of children being torn from their parents, the last messages of doomed worlds. 47 different species had been harvested over the past century, their populations delivered to the Devourers by the Council's own ships. "The Devourers were quite talkative once we explained our position to them," Cross continued. "They provided detailed records of their arrangement with the Council. 50,000 years of feeding on the galaxy's young civilizations, all sanctioned and facilitated by the very organization that claims to protect them." Captain Thorne of the Centauri Federation leaned forward, his blue-tinted skin pale with shock. "Even if these accusations were true, what could you possibly hope to accomplish? The Council commands the loyalty of 10,000 worlds. Your single vessel, no matter how advanced, cannot stand against the combined might of galactic civilization." Cross's smile widened. "You still don't understand, do you? You're still thinking in terms of the old paradigms, the old balance of power. Allow me to introduce you to the new reality." The chamber's lights dimmed as the main display shifted to show a view of local space around the Council station. The assembled delegates gasped as 17 massive shapes materialized from stealth fields, their hulls bristling with weapons that seemed to bend light around them. The Leviathan hadn't come alone, it had brought its entire battle group. "The Terran Federation's first fleet," Cross announced. 18 vessels, each one capable of sterilizing a planet or cracking a moon. "We've been building in secret for 30 years while you dismissed us as harmless primitives. Every time you laughed at our chemical rockets, we were developing weapons that could tear holes in space-time itself." Hive Queen Adzara's mandibles clicked frantically as she processed the implications. Her species had ruled through numbers and overwhelming force for millions of years, but the humans had just demonstrated that quantity meant nothing when faced with sufficient technological superiority. A single human vessel could destroy her entire hive fleet without breaking formation. "This is impossible," Speaker Valen's crystalline form pulsed with agitated energy patterns. "No species develops such capabilities in isolation. You must have received assistance from an outside power." Cross laughed, the sound echoing through the chamber like breaking glass. "Outside power? You mean like the assistance you gave the Devourers?" "No, Speaker Valen, humanity accomplished this entirely on our own. While you were busy maintaining your corrupt status quo, we were pushing the boundaries of what you considered possible." Director Morgan Vale's voice crackled through the chamber's communication system as she addressed the council from her position aboard the Leviathan. "For 50,000 years, your civilizations have followed the same technological paths, the same evolutionary patterns. You became predictable, stagnant, comfortable in your superiority. Humanity chose a different route." The main display shifted again, showing technical specifications that made the assembled delegates recoil in horror. The Leviathan's power core was a controlled black hole. Its weapons fired compressed spacetime, and its defenses operated on principles that most species considered theoretical impossibilities. The human fleet represented a paradigm shift that rendered every other military force in the galaxy obsolete. "The question now," Cross continued, "is what the galaxy intends to do about the species who enabled 50,000 years of genocide. The Devourers are no longer a threat, we've seen to that. But their enablers, their suppliers, their business partners in the Council, they remain." Admiral Corvin rose from his seat, his warrior's pride finally overcoming his fear. "You speak of justice, but what you propose is conquest. You would replace the Council's authority with your own, ruling through fear and superior firepower. Would we?" Cross asked, raising an eyebrow. "Let me make something clear, Admiral. Earth doesn't want to rule the galaxy. We never asked to be your overlords or your replacements. All we ever wanted was to be left alone to build our own civilization in peace." The chamber fell silent as Cross continued. "But you couldn't allow that, could you? You had to interfere, to judge, to decide our fate without our consent. You laughed at our technology while planning to feed us to your pet monsters. You forced this confrontation through your own arrogance and corruption." Captain Ray Hudson's image appeared on the display, transmitting from the Leviathan's bridge. "The Terran Federation makes the following demands. All species currently held as slaves or tribute will be immediately released. All Council vessels involved in the harvesting operations will surrender their crews for trial. All worlds that participated in the Devourer conspiracy will provide reparations to the surviving victims. And if we refuse?" Speaker Valen asked, though his energy patterns already indicated he knew the answer. Hudson's smile was colder than the vacuum of space. "Then we'll demonstrate why the Devourers fled in terror when they realized what they were facing. The galaxy wanted to judge humanity's military capabilities. Consider this our final examination." The display shifted to show the human fleet moving into attack formation, their weapons charging with energies that made nearby space itself ripple with distortion. The 18 vessels of Earth's First Fleet represented more destructive power than the entire Galactic Council could field, and everyone in the chamber knew it. "You have 72 hours to comply with our demands," Cross announced, deliberately echoing the Council's earlier ultimatum to Earth. "The same deadline you gave us to prove our worth. I suggest you use the time wisely." Admiral Corvin slumped in his seat, his 6 arms hanging limply at his sides. The proud warrior who had once commanded fleets across a dozen star systems now faced obsolescence at the hands of the species he had dismissed as primitive. His weapons couldn't penetrate human defenses, his ships couldn't match human speed, and his tactics were useless against enemies who fought with the fundamental forces of reality itself. "The age of the Galactic Council is over," Cross declared, with finality. "A new order is beginning, one based on mutual respect rather than predation, on justice rather than convenience. Humanity will not seek to rule you, but we will no longer allow you to prey upon the innocent. Captain Thorne found his voice at last, though it trembled with defeat. What happens to our civilizations, our governments, our way of life? That depends entirely on your choices over the next 72 hours, Hudson replied from the Leviathan. Species that cooperate with the New Order will find humanity to be generous allies. Those that resist will discover why the Devourers called us the Deathbringers in their final transmissions. Cross closed the holographic display and turned to face the assembled delegates one last time. The galaxy spent 50,000 years laughing at the weak while feeding them to monsters. That age is over. Humanity has awakened, and we remember every slight, every dismissal, every casual cruelty you inflicted on those who couldn't defend themselves. As Cross walked toward the chamber's exit, she paused at the doorway. Oh, and Admiral Corvin? The next time you encounter a species with primitive technology, you might want to consider the possibility that they're simply choosing not to show you what they're really capable of. Not every civilization is as arrogant as yours. The massive doors closed behind her with a sound like the sealing of an era. In the chamber, the delegates who had once ruled the galaxy sat in stunned silence, watching through the viewports as humanity's fleet hung in space like sleeping dragons. The laughter had stopped forever, replaced by the quiet terror of predators who had suddenly discovered they were prey. The galaxy's new reality had arrived, and it wore the face of the species. They had dismissed as harmless apes. Earth's children had grown up, and they were no longer interested in playing games with those who had sought to destroy them. The harvest was over, the hunters had become the hunted, and the galaxy would never be the same. In the depths of space, 17 more ships exactly like the Leviathan were nearing completion. Their construction hidden in facilities that the galaxy's intelligence services had never suspected existed. Humanity's message was clear: the age of easy predation was over, and any species that threatened the innocent would face the consequences. The universe had laughed at Earth's weakness. Now it would learn to fear humanity's strength.